and welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about drivers, and not drivers in the neat black suits and the narrow ties and the little hats. I want to talk about drivers that clients use to make decisions or to move forward with projects. In my opinion, there are three types of drivers: need drivers, institutional drivers, and unspoken drivers. A need driver is financial, regulatory, capacity, safety, whatever reason there is that this project needs to be done. Next are institutional drivers. These are the drivers that are put out there for public consumption when the client knows the world is listening. These are drivers that are communicated as reasons for selecting a consultant, such as budget, understanding, experience, etc. Often it's at these institutional drivers that the discussion about drivers stops with a client. And that's because it's easy information to get. Through simple communication with the client, we can come back and report this client is doing this project for reasons A, B, and C. Case closed, and we can move on. In my opinion, that's not the whole story. And more importantly, the institutional drivers, in my opinion, are not why the consultant is selected. Why the consultant is selected is because of unspoken drivers. These are the drivers that are personal to the decision makers. What consultant is going to allow me to sleep comfortably at night? What consultant is going to help me look good in front of management? What consultant is going to take care of this project so I can take it off my plate and pay attention to more important things? These are often masked as institutional drivers, but they are specific to each project's decision makers when you are standing in front of them in an interview. And it's these unspoken drivers that really drive consultant selection. In my opinion, need drivers schedule projects. Institutional drivers communicate projects. And unspoken drivers determine consultant selection to complete the project. The reason that this is important is because unspoken drivers are just that. They are unspoken. You may have a discussion with a client and ask them, what's the driver for doing this project? And they may say, we need the capacity. That's a need driver. They might also respond, we need someone to do this project who can get it done on schedule and on budget. That's an institutional driver. But the unspoken driver may be, I need someone who's going to help me look good in front of upper management. That's the unspoken driver. And there are ways to get at that unspoken driver. Here's an issue that compounds the unspoken drivers even more. They're often unconscious even to the client. And even if they are conscious to the client, they're certainly not going to communicate to the consultant their own personal unspoken driver as to why they're going to select someone. This is another place where lead time is absolutely critical, because you need that lead time to find out what those unspoken drivers are, because it takes time to uncover them. You're not going to uncover an unspoken driver in a very short, narrow time frame after the RFP is issued, and you're certainly not going to uncover it without having rapport with the client. You can look at a master plan for any client and identify need drivers 1, 5, 10, 20 years out. You can attend board meetings, council meetings, various committee meetings, and easily identify the institutional drivers. But unspoken drivers, by their very name, are not communicated because they're not supposed to be part of the decision process. But I firmly believe they are the most important part of the decision process. Unspoken drivers take time, focus, and effort in the form of detective work to uncover in some cases. But the good news is once you've uncovered that unspoken driver, It's like having the golden ticket to the project. And that's why it's so important. Here's an example of uncovering unspoken drivers on a recent pursuit that I was leading. The client was on the planning side of a very large infrastructure project. And they communicated anytime in a public forum that schedule and budget were the critical drivers in the project and its completion. And they stated it just like that. These were the drivers. I would call those institutional drivers. However, we were aware that the client had just completed a similar project in terms of size and complexity, and we wanted to know what the drivers were for consultant selection on that project. First, we reviewed public interviews that the primary decision maker had given regarding the project that was just wrapping up and the project that we were going to proposing on that was coming up. We reviewed a series of informational videos that the client had posted on their website for public consumption regarding the upcoming project, and they featured the primary decision maker. Lastly, we made sure that we attended each and every presentation that the primary decision maker was giving throughout the region regarding this upcoming project. In doing these three things, we saw that the primary decision maker continued to talk about technical complexities, the need to be able to meet a schedule, and the need to be able to meet the budget. But there was another thing that we noticed. Throughout these interviews, throughout the videos, and throughout the presentations, the primary decision maker always referred back to the need for risk reduction and not wanting any surprises on the project. This wasn't something that was a formal part of his presentations. It was simply a theme that ran through all of his interviews, videos, and presentations over a 12-month period. He did this to such an extent, in fact, that even when the topic didn't pertain to risk, he still brought the subject back around to risk. At this point, we knew we had our unspoken driver, and that was risk. This primary decision maker, as we phrased it, needed to be able to sleep at night, knowing that the consultant that he had selected was on the job. What did we do with that information? We took the need drivers, the institutional drivers, and the unspoken drivers and wove them together in everything that we communicated to the client through statement of qualifications, proposals, introductory letters, our meetings with the client. When our senior management met with the client, they were instructed to weave this risk reduction concept into their discussions. We made his driver our primary concern. As you can see from this example, unspoken drivers cannot be uncovered and put to beneficial use on a short, condensed time frame. They require lead time. The key to uncovering unspoken drivers is to make use of opportunities when you can listen to the client during unguarded times and discussions. Here's some places where you can find this kind of information to help you identify common themes that can be unspoken drivers. Presentations, press interviews, council meetings, board meetings, websites, chance discussions at professional meetings, group lunches, social functions, etc. And the reason there's a variety of places where you can get this information is that you're unlikely to identify an unspoken driver through a single interaction or single comment from the client. What you need to do is gather information from a variety of sources and triangulate that information. That's what helps you identify their unspoken drivers. Now, I don't want to send you out there looking for a needle in a haystack in the form of an unspoken driver. So here's a way to to kind of get a head start on what it is you might be looking for. Put yourself in the position of the client. That sounds a lot like the perceptual positions exercise that we discussed in Module 4. Put yourself in their chair and ask yourself, if I were in charge of this project, what would I want in a consultant? And then move to the other chairs and then move back and ask yourself that question again. If you were in charge of this project in the position of the client, what would you want in a consultant? Don't stop at the need and don't stop at the company line. The unspoken drivers are what will determine who's selected and who's not selected. The clues are out there. You just need to be prepared, aware, and listening. Give that a try, and I'll see you next time. So long.